This week on Conflict Zone, my guest is Jens Spahn, a state secretary at the finance ministry here in Berlin and a member of the executive committee of Chancellor Merkel's CDU party. How will the big questions facing Germany and the rest of Europe affect what Merkel admits will be the toughest election campaign of her career? Jens Spahn, welcome to Conflict Zone. The rising star of German politics is not your party leader Angela Merkel, but Martin Schulz, the Social Democrat candidate for Chancellor in the upcoming elections. He is a serious problem for your party, the CDU, isn't he?
Well, first of all, it just shows actually that the Social Democrats in Germany have a period of long political depression after them.
It shows that you could have a long period of political depression because he is really now the star.
No, well, they are waking up and they get some motivation, and I think that's good.
Perhaps you have also to wake up.
Wait a second, please. I just think that's a good situation, actually, because it becomes more controversial in the center.
And more dangerous for your power game.
No, more interesting for real Democrats, because what I really do believe in is that if we don't offer a choice in the political center, and that people have a real choice when they go to vote, then they search for the extreme
but it's
choice.
possible
And that
that
is
the
what we
CDU
have seen.
Is not anymore
Just
give
me a second. So that is what we have seen with Trump and Sanders, for example. That is what we see with populist movements all over Europe. That if there is no controversial debate about the future of the country, of the future of society within the political center, then people search for the extreme wings. And so I'm very happy that we're going to have a real campaign and a real debate in this year.
The Social Democrats have gained 10% in the opinion polls. They are now as strong as the CDU. It makes you happy? Also, this makes you happy?
What makes me happy is that we're going to have a real debate. And it's still 7 months to go.
But as strong as the CDU in a few weeks.
Well, there are still high approval rates. By the way, a big majority of Germans don't think that Mr. Schulz is going to win. So just give it some time. It's 7 months.
Mr. Schulz is as popular as Angela Merkel.
But that doesn't count. But the majority doesn't believe he's going to win. And nevertheless, this is about the next 7 months to come. This is about campaigning. This is about making our points clear. He is about the past. He's talking about reforms of the past, and we have to talk about the future. And if we just do this in the coming months, this is going to be interesting for the German people.
Are you surprised about this unbelievable change?
Everyone is surprised. I mean, even Social Democrats are a bit surprised that it is such an increase in their polls. But nevertheless, that is just the momentum right now.
Are you worried?
No.
Are you worried?
No, as I'm said, I'm really looking forward to a controversial content debate about the future of this country. And that is different to the campaign we had last time, by the way. The last time campaigning was very boring. The biggest issue was the...
But your party bored. I mean, Angela Merkel was boring.
No.
To whom are you complaining?
I'm not complaining, I'm describing. The atmosphere in society 3.5 years back was... It's all doing very well. We did economically very well. There was no controversial issue on the table. And right now, in 2017, we all realize this society, the European societies actually, are more polarized, more politicized than at least for some decades. And so this is going to be a very interesting year.
So let's have this interesting debate. Martin Schulz, I repeat this, is as popular as Merkel. Whenever you look at this guy, Schulz looks energetic, passionate. Angela Merkel, by comparison, looks worn out after 3 terms in office.
Well, she's the most experienced...
She looks tired.
Well, she doesn't look tired.
He
is
coming into a room, everybody is happy, he is enthusiastic.
But whom do you want to run this country, this big economy in the middle of Europe? Just someone who's making some nice speeches, who just is smiling all day long? Or do you want to have someone who is experienced?
So you're speaking about Mr. Schulz. He is speaking
I mean, what's actually the point? We are talking, so far we haven't talked about any content. We are talking about a guy smiling around, giving some speeches, which is okay, but I want to know what he believes in. All I know is that he is more in favor of a communistic government in Athens than he is for the German taxpayer. That's all I know of him. And now I want to know something from him. What he thinks about immigration, what does he think about education, what does he think about the future of this country. So far, we haven't heard anything, and I want to hear something in the upcoming 7 months, and then I'm very happy that we're going to have a content debate.
I mean, you know what the SPD is telling to the public?
Well,
social justice, for example.
Yeah, well, you know, the Social Democrats have been in government for several years, actually most of the years in the past 20 years. They have actually... They were in office, in the ministry, for example, for work, for consumer protection.
They changed a lot in social justice issues.
But now there's the candidate telling everyone...
He wants more.
Telling...
Well, he's telling everybody
Merkel
he acts like
an opposition leader, and I want to hear what he thinks about what his government, his people in government have done in the past years. So again, we need to talk about content. Just smiling around is very nice for the beginning, but it's not enough for the whole campaign.
Content. Let's speak about content. You said we conservatives need more passion, more clarity, more attitude. Okay, sounds good, but when are you going to start with this? The elections are over in a few months.
Well, actually we started with our party meeting in Essen last December in the city of Essen, where we made very clear that our issues for this upcoming campaign, and that is because that is what worries people most, is about crime, about cultural identity, about the question, you know, after the US, Germany, for some years meanwhile, already before the refugee and migrants crisis actually, we are the second biggest immigration country in the world after the United States. But so far...
A success story? A success story?
But not yet, because so far we haven't debated enough, from my point of view, what do we expect actually from these immigrants? What do we offer them on the one hand, and on the other hand, what do we expect? Is it just obeying the laws, or do we expect them to become part of the society, not living with us, not next to us? And that is a debate that actually should have taken place decades ago, when the first immigrants came in the 60s and 70s, but everyone feels right now this issue triggered through the migrants' situation in the past 2 years. This issue is on the table.
But you have another
that is
problem.
what people's worry, and so I want to talk about that.
But you have another problem. Martin Schulz has the full backing of his party. You can see that all social democrat rallies, there is joy when he appears. But what about Merkel? Is everyone in the CDU and CSU supporting Merkel with the same enthusiasm?
Of course, the party, as a society as a whole, has had 2 difficult years. Because what has happened to Germany and to Europe, these actually 100,000 of migrants and refugees coming into the country, have of course caused a political debate in the whole society and in the 2 main governing parties, CDU and CSU.
The leader of the Bavarian Conservatives, Horst Seehofer, says he thinks a cap on the number of migrants is needed. Angela Merkel says no.
Well, everyone agrees, and the Christian Democratic Party and the Christian Democratic leader as well, that there are limits when it comes to...
That's not my point.
Well, but I'm talking
about...
Do you
think that he is really supporting...
Yes, he is.
After all these disputes, suddenly peace and love...
So far we haven't talked about any content. I mean, you can go on for 25 minutes
you
just talking
about the refugee crisis.
I talk about content, and you are always about guys...
we are speaking about
Merkel,
content.
Schulz.
Mr. Seehofer,
I want to talk about the issues of Europe.
We are talking about content. Good. Mr. Seehofer has another opinion on the refugee crisis than the CDU has. This is content.
No, 98%. We are just this cap. I don't think that a cap of 200,000 people per year, refugees per year, is the right thing to do. I think, by the way, it's a too high number for an average year. But everyone knows that there is a limit how many people you can integrate, how many people you can take into society.
This is the main issue in this campaign?
This is one of the main issues, yes.
So let's talk about another one again. And please, not because I don't want to speak about content, I want to quote you. You have criticized Schulz. You say he's not a man of the people, which is one of the arguments of populists. And you said, no, he is not a man of the people, he's part of the establishment. So what is it? Is Schulz a hypocrite? Is this populism?
It's populism, pure populism, telling people actually, I mean, this country, for example, is economically doing so well, in the best shape for decades. More people than ever have a job. We have increasing wages, salaries and pensions. So the social welfare budget actually is as high as it never has been before.
But the feeling of the population is there is a problem.
Yeah, but the question is, do we actually tell people every now and then, look, how it was 10 years ago when we were the sick man of Europe, not Greece, but Germany, and how is it now? Do we explain it to them? Do we tell them?
And there is a
we
social
actually
justice
doing
problem in the country.
Yeah,
there are poor people in the country.
But the question is, how do you approach it? How do you talk about it? And the Social Democrats have tried this before in 2013. They tried to tell people this is a country in a very difficult situation. This is a country that just has social injustice, and it didn't work out.
Around 30%
they weren't successful
of the
in
voters today
again, they will
in
not be
polls
successful.
are saying that what the Social Democrats are saying is also their concern. Is this a fantasy? Is this a non-existing problem, as you are saying?
Do you think this is a country that is doing very well right now and is able to help people in special situations? Yes. That we need to talk about. We need to talk about 45,000 young men and women leaving school every year without any examination, without anything. Instead of that, we are trying to blow up, or they are trying to blow up, social problems that aren't there. We should talk about the real problems and not about felt problems.
You were talking about the real problems, you were talking about the refugees. Chancellor Merkel has changed her welcome policy. Migration law has been tightened, the government wants to make it easier to send people home. You are trying to do repatriation deals with countries that don't protect human rights. All this is pandering to right-wing voters, to the populists?
No, if you want to have acceptance actually within the population to help refugees, and we do want to help refugees, people that are fleeing from war and torture, if you want to have acceptance for that in society, it must make a difference if someone is really a refugee or if someone is a migrant coming for understandable reasons but not as a refugee.
The opposition leader from the Linke, Bernd Rexinger, is saying important basic rights are being sacrificed on the altar of domestic security.
Well, that's rubbish. I would say there are not too many countries in the world where there is such a legal procedure and courts involved actually when it comes to decide in every single case if someone is a refugee and is to remain in the country or if someone is to leave. But what is more important is actually that we get and regain back control over our European border. It must be us as a European Union to decide who is to come in and who is not, and not the smugglers.
But this is certainly one point. But let's talk about people who have to leave the country. In recent days, asylum seekers have been flown from Germany to Afghanistan, a country in civil war. Nobody really believes Afghanistan is safe. Do you believe Afghanistan is safe?
I do believe and I do know that there are safe places in Afghanistan.
Where are they? Where are the safe places?
For example,
the people arrive in Kabul. Where are safe places?
You know, there are German soldiers, young men.
Yes.
Protecting big regions of this country.
Because Afghanistan is not safe.
And actually it is their purpose and that is their task and that is what they do, to make this northern region, for example, safe. But how do I explain to a German mother that her son or woman is doing his service in northern Afghanistan and we can't send back young Afghan men actually to build up their own country? And by the way, just let me make this point too, please. There are thousands of Afghan people going back to their country on a voluntary basis.
But this is their decision.
There must be safe regions.
Okay, then let's take a UN report. Between the 16th of August and the 17th of November, a few weeks 2016, the United Nations recorded 6,261 security incidents across the whole country, which represented a 9% increase compared to 2015. I want only to listen and to learn. You're sending back people to Afghanistan.
After a legal process.
Where is the security for these people?
50%, around 50% of those who have applied for asylum from Afghanistan are accepted as refugees because of their personal situation. and the other half is not accepted because of their personal situation that is screened on a very single base for every individual person. And if then the legal system and the courts decide that this one has to leave the country again, then actually it's rule of law that he or she has to leave the country. And as I said, there are not safe places in Afghanistan, no doubt about that, but you know how big this country is, how big Afghanistan is. There are enough safe places, and as long as there are international organizations saying that there is enough room and space in the regions that are safe, as long we are doing it.
Mr. Spahn, moving on, we are sitting in the finance ministry of the Eurozone's most powerful economy. President Trump's economic advisor has accused Germany of using a, quote, grossly undervalued euro to exploit the US economy. Is he right?
No, because if there is one ministry and one government in Europe and the Eurozone that actually would love a kind of different approach of the European Central Bank, which means a more stronger euro, then it is this ministry.
You prefer a strong euro, you prefer strong, more interests?
We prefer that there is a beginning rise, actually.
Of interest or
of the interest euro? Rates, and that, of course, changes the currency rate. But what
will not, because when the Americans will have...
Mr. Friedman, what is most important is that it is not politically influenced. The ECB is an independent institution, and so the accusation actually that is in the room that there is political influence.
No, this is not the accusation.
It is. I have talked to people in Washington, and that's the accusation they make.
Did you talk also to people in Spain, in France, in Portugal, in Greece, who might say the same thing? They think Germany is too strong and is dictating everything. Yeah, that's what you hear. Actually, when you are going
first of all, when it comes to the current account surplus we have with the United States, it's a market decision. When President Trump says there are too many Mercedeses on the Fifth Avenue and too less Chevrolets in Europe, that's a decision by the consumers and not by a state, or it's not state intervention. That's, by the way...
We are speaking about the euro.
That's it, yes, but you started the whole issue with a quote from the US, and that is where the debate started. Secondly, you know, our industry, for example, is so much connected, meanwhile, for example, with the Eastern European countries, with the Czech Republic or with Poland, that if we have a current account surplus with the US, for example, it helps the Eastern European or South European countries as well, because that's a supply chain and a production chain that is
But you have a principal problem. Germany talks about financial stability in Europe, but it's causing instability. You have an 8% surplus in the current account balance, much more than it is allowed in the European Stability Pact. And yet, for example, you accuse the Greek government of violating the Stability Pact, and you're doing the same. This is hypocrisy.
No.
You're doing the same. You're violating the Stability Pact.
No, we are not violating.
8% is more than allowed.
And what shall we do? What's your proposal?
I mean, what
shall we forbid to export our cars?
8% are 2% more than the negotiations result was. 6%
Yes,
is allowed.
but everyone accepts actually that there is no real measure that we... Well, what shall we... Again, what shall we do? We have increasing wages, we have increasing salaries, we have increasing pensions, we have increasing public spending, we have actually much more investment money that we can build somehow
but you
into
could
the
invest.
public. No, we can't.
Your finance minister is saying he doesn't want to invest. He wants to have.
No.
He doesn't want to invest.
No, sorry. There's money flowing back into our budget because the projects we want to finance are not ready to be built. Right now, public infrastructure in Germany, that it is not done, it's not a problem of money, it's a problem of planning processes.
But we are speaking about double standard.
What I just say is what actually shall the German government do? We do invest more than ever. We have increased. Give me just 1 second. We have increasing demand. We are very good in exporting, that's true. But actually, as I said, it's helping our neighbor countries as well because of the production chain. What it is about actually is to less competitiveness in some other countries.
And
as soon as they get
standards. We're speaking about double standards.
No.
Yes, you want another example for double standards?
Please.
France spends more than the EU Stability Pact allows. But the EU accepts this with German support. Why is France allowed to spend over 3% of their GDP, while Greece is forced to follow austerity?
Well,
double standards.
No, France is as Spain, as Italy, as Germany in the same process, and that is done, by the way, by the Commission. The supervision is done by the Commission. So you should go to Brussels actually and ask the Commission. The point we make in this ministry and in this government is that we say the Commission shouldn't have a political approach. It should have just an objective approach. It shouldn't be about if it is France or if it is Greece or if it is Portugal. It should be about the figures. So we totally agree on that one, but for that you have to ask Brussels and the Commission.
So do you support the decision of Brussels?
Well, we support the Commission in their approach actually to ask Italy, to ask France, to ask Spain and Portugal especially to do more when it comes to their budget deficit, and that is what's happening. I mean, France has reformed a lot. Italy has reformed a lot.
But France is still a weak country in Europe.
But France is
a very weak country. We are talking always about Greece. But the really important countries who are a danger for the Eurozone are France, are still Italy, are Spain. These are the big countries.
Yes, and they are doing, I mean, they are doing reforms. At least you have to recognize that. And secondly, the Commission is just right now actually in talks with Italy, for example, and with France about the future and the forecast for their budgets and for the reforms they need. But it brings us all back to one word I just made some minutes ago: competitiveness. We need more structural reforms in Germany as well as in Italy. No. Obviously, the main problem of Greece right now is not the debt burden. The main problem of Greece is how do we get in more investments? How do we get in more people to create jobs? How do we get back to a growth path? That's the problem of Greece. Everyone is focusing on debt, but actually the main focus should be on how do we get back growth and new jobs.
But the real focus in Greece is that 40% of the Greece households say that they have to cut back on food spending. I mean, food spending. Greece cannot implement a reform mainly demanded also by Germans without a massive increase in poverty.
It's about reforms actually that the Greek government promised to do. I mean, we have a signed agreement. That is what a treaty, what an agreement is about. Both sides give something and do something and promise to do something. And the other Eurozone member states give actually kind of shelter. They help as a creditor. They do help Greece by supporting them with finance, and the Greek government promised to do some structural reforms actually to get back on a growth path. And now it's about actually the Greek side, and they have done, one has to say by the way, they have done more than every government before already, but still they have to do a little bit. And that is what we are talking about right now, that everyone moves a bit and then we can find a compromise. But if we just throw more money onto the problem, it doesn't solve the root of the problem.
Let's speak about a neighbor of Greece, Turkey. Is Turkey still a democratic country?
Well, it's still a democratic country, but it's on a very dangerous path.
It is still a democratic country?
Well, of course you can always...
I ask you. I mean...
I would say, yes, they have an elected government, they have an elected parliament, but when it comes to human rights, when it comes to the freedom of speech, when it comes to the freedom of the media, we obviously have problems. Democracy is actually ruling of the majority. But what is more crucial is rule of law. That is what we should talk about. Is there rule of law in these countries? Okay. Majority
then I'm asking
leading
you, this is a very good concrete question. So the freedom of press is practically non-existent, as you said. And now we are speaking about the law system. A court, a legal instrument, a court in Turkey has just sent German journalist Dennis Yücel to jail. The Chancellor said it's a bitter and disappointing step. It was a legal decision.
What we do expect is that it is a fair process.
Was it till now fair, from your point of view? Well, is Mr. Yücel fairly treated till now?
No, because he himself went to the police and said, here I am, you're searching for me. And taking this into account, I wouldn't say he's treated in a fair.
What are the consequences?
But by the way, Mr. Yücel not just has a German passport, but a Turkish one too.
Do you
and
think
that shows, by the way, that double citizenship doesn't make it. No, but it doesn't make it easier to solve such an issue.
Do you think that the legal system in Turkey is still on the foundation of democratic issues, scales, methods?
As I already said, it's on a dangerous path. The development is very, well, we have to be very cautious about what's going on there. It does worrying me, it does worrying others. Actually, Turkey is a very important NATO partner.
And that's why they can do whatever they want.
NATO is about values too, but it's still a partner. And what I do want to is to talk with our Turkish colleagues, with the Turkish government about what's going on.
And of course we do,
and of course we do criticize, and this government has criticized in the past months, every day actually, what's going on in Turkey.
Thank you very much, Jens Spahn, for being on Conflict Zone.
A pleasure.
Thank you.